Refuge Freedom Stories, brought to you by Refuge Ministries Canada. For the next half hour, your hearts will be filled with hope as you hear real-life stories from individuals that have been changed by the power of God. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Refuge Freedom Stories. I'm your host, Johnny T., and today my guest is Gina Economopolous. Gina, a former nun, has experienced profound loss, addiction, hopelessness, and despair. Yet she has come to an understanding of how the power of faith in God and healing through service is greater than any adversity she has faced. Gina, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Johnny. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you here. It's quite a story just captured in that little paragraph of an introduction. So why don't we roll back the clock a little bit? And I want to understand how your faith grew as a young person and what brought you to the place where you decided that serving God, the best way was to join a convent and become a nun.
Yes, I'd be more than happy to. Of course, Johnny, I wasn't the one at a young age say, oh, I want to be a sister. I want to be a nun. And some people do. You know, there are young men and women say, yeah, they knew, because as we know, it's a calling, it's a vocation, it's a calling. So sisterhood was not even in my mind at all, wasn't a dream. So growing up, I grew up in New York on Long Island, one of 8 kids. My parents were devout Catholic, Italian and Greek. Went to Mass, received all my sacraments. But believe it or not, as a child, I didn't want to be involved with Jesus or God. I mean, my mother tried to push me to go to prayer meetings like this. No, it's not cool. It's not cool. Mm-hmm. So to be honest, growing up, I don't want to say I didn't have a faith. I just didn't think Jesus was cool. It was, for me, not that I didn't like church, but I wanted to be loved and accepted, but I never thought it would be in the church. So as I continue in my life, I went to college, and in college, I stopped going to church. I stopped going to Mass. I was out. I went to school in Connecticut. Yep, no more. That's it for me. You know, now I'm going to live my life. And I truly did. I lived a college life. I did graduate, got my degree in social work. So church, God was not even part of my life at all. It's not that I didn't believe in God. I just didn't need him. After college, I went to go live with my family. They moved to PA. So I went there and I got a bartending job. So that's it. That's my life, bartending. I thought, I always wanted to get married and have kids, but it wasn't in my plan. It wasn't in the cards then. So I bartended, and I just love bartending. So I figured that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, is bartend, is to travel and bartend. My mom in 1991 was diagnosed with cancer. She went in for minor surgery. They came out. They said she had bone cancer, 4 to 6 months to live. Wow. I happen to be at home. I'm bartending. I'm about 23 years old, and I'm like, what's cancer? So what do we do when you hear the news is that I turn back to God. My mother, like I said, was very devout and faithful. She pulls out the rosary. Don't know what a rosary is, but I started praying, got all these novenas, these Catholic prayers. I went back to church. I was crying. I'm like saying, oh, God, heal my mom, heal my mom. Well, the medical people were right, because she died in 5 months. And I was there. My dad was there too as well. My dad and I were her main caregivers in those 5 months. Like I said, I was doing everything I can to keep my mom alive. I invited God back in, and I was just so upset that he didn't hear my prayers. So I was in such a deep grief, sorrow, losing my mom, realizing when my mom died, I didn't have any hope. I didn't have any faith. I didn't have no God in my life, or no love personally. So it was very hard for me. At my mom's wake, everyone kept saying, your mom's with God. Your mom's with God. I said, but she's not with me. I don't know who this God person is. So that's where I started searching the meaning of life. What is the purpose of life? I go back into the Catholic Church. Nobody was there. And I yelled, I said, God, everyone tells me my mom's with you here. I don't want to talk to you. So get out. And I want to talk to my mom. And that was my journey, beginning of, I would say, a spiritual awakening, because as I kept going to church and searching, crying, I tears and everything, and trying to find out the meaning of life. I did. I received a aha moment. I received a spiritual awakening, and I received like a taste of heaven. I was on a pilgrimage, which meant I went to a shrine. And I was like, wow, I tasted heaven. So at that moment, I said, well, if I'm tasting heaven, if this is where my mom's at, where I think she's at, I can't really imagine where she's at. So that's where I had the resurrection. Through my mom's death, I received the resurrection. But it wasn't until my mom's and her own suffering and death that I got the resurrection. And then that's how I said, well, I'm going to go for it. Let me go become a nun. So I was a Catholic nun, Franciscan sister in the South Bronx for 12 years. And wow. I thought that was it, but it wasn't.
Well, you said that when you were praying and you believed that God didn't answer your prayers, but at that time you were praying for God to show himself, and he did. He heard your prayer. He just didn't answer it the way you expected it.
So true. Of course, I see all in hindsight that God was there and he did answer and he continued to answer my prayers. And from that moment forward, my faith, my journey, like even as a sister, it was up and down, challenges in my life. Even as a sister, I married God. I made final vows. So I laid down my life as a sister, took the vows of poverty, chastity, obedience, vowed to the church, vowed to my community, and vowed to the people like we serve, which was the poor. And I love that. I love to pray. I was a very prayerful sister. Everyone called me a pious nun. At that time, my claim to fame was like bartender, Poolshark, nun. It's like, so when people heard that, they'd be like, oh, sister, can you come and speak to our youth group? Oh, sister, can you come and speak here? So I did. One of the many gifts is that I did speak throughout the world or gone to different places to speak and to share my story that, hey, I was a Poolshark bartender and now none.
So it sounds like that journey was kind of a fulfillment of this desire to really know God and to serve him as best as possible. But yet you decided to leave the convent as a nun. So what changed? Did your faith change, or did something change in your life that made you decide this isn't the path that I'm going to follow and God has something else for me?
Well, it wasn't my choice of my own at first. During my sisterhood, yes, I had a lot of great times, joyful times, serving, compassionate, loving God, telling other people, sharing the love of God. But yet I had a real tough time being in the community with the other sisters. I had experienced a lot of pain and suffering. In hindsight, it was a very dysfunctional community. I look back and here I was part of it. And here I wanted to give my life to God. But at the same time, I was suffering. And I'm like, why am I suffering? Why am I suffering in the community? And then I kept thinking of Jesus on the cross. The last 2 years of my religious life, the community had set me aside and says they needed a break from me. I'm like, why do you need a break from me? And I was sent away. I went for therapy. I was on silence. I was doing everything I can because they needed a break. So I needed to find out what's wrong. What am I doing wrong? I mean, here I thought God called me. And throughout my religious life, my superior as well as my spiritual director, there were many times in those 12 years I would say, I don't think I belong here, or I'm going through this pain, and why am I being treated like this? And their response was like, oh, no, you do belong here. God wants you here. And that to me was the voice from God because it was my superior. So here I am, I said, okay, I guess I'm here. I'm here to suffer. I'm here to whatever, like this. I endured rejection, betrayed, you name it. Like I was hurt. I was hurt as a sister by the other sisters and especially by the one in charge. And so by the time I did everything I could, it's like a husband and wife. They go to counseling, they, go get the help. I did everything I could for the last 2 years of my religious life. Like, yeah, I got it. There was really nothing wrong with me. But yet I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give my whole life because I married God. And how can God not call me anymore if he did? And the last words, then 2 years later, after going through all this therapy and doing all this stuff, that the sister says, well, I don't think you belong here anymore. I'm like, what? What? And I'm like, I was just not an innocent, but naive. I don't know. I'm like, because all I kept thinking is, this is a good, community, religious people. Why are they hurting me? Why are they sending me away? Why do they isolate me? I didn't know why things were going on. I'm a nice person. I mean, I felt like a dog on a chain. And then I also felt I didn't kill anyone. So I don't understand why I was experiencing all this abuse. And in hindsight, yes, I was emotionally abused being in the convent. I could say it now. Back then, No, I couldn't say it. So
Yeah, well, I think sometimes we tend to think that God has given us a clear direction to go somewhere. And if we're not 100% sure or He hasn't, then we're kind of stepping out in our own strength or our own choice or whatever. Our own wisdom, I guess, is the best way to say it. And that's not always God's plan for our life. And sometimes, as you said, it can bring tension, it can bring stress, it can bring different things because we're not walking in the perfect will of God. And it's so important that we hear God's voice and to be able to move forward in what He really does want each of us to do for Him. So when you left, how did you pick up your life from there?
My heart was broken. I was confused. I went to go live with men and women with disabilities. It was a transition time for me. Received healing because, to be honest, Johnny, I didn't understand why that happened to me. I couldn't understand, didn't know what God's will was because I was a very well-known, loved sister. And when people heard I left, they were like, "Oh my God," and they would say, "Why don't you go to another community? There's so many out there." And I'm like, at that point, why would I want to be among women again and get hurt again? I'm done. I was done. So I had to receive a lot of healing to really move forward. And that's where this place, being with the disability men and women, Down syndrome, they just loved me to death. Mm-hmm. And then I was there for 2 years. And at this point, God was in my life. I'm trying to, okay, God, what is your will? What's your will? Pray, what is your will for me? I decided then that vocation to a religious life came to a close. I fulfilled one. I said, maybe I'll meet a nice guy in the church. So then at this point, I was tired of helping and serving. I wanted to do, Gina wanted to, and that's where she ended up here at the Jersey Shore. I went back to bartending because it's the only thing I knew how to do. Bartending and a nun. Those are the two things in my life.
And pool.
And pool. That's right. Still good at it. And then when I was bartending, I said, okay, I'm going to still have my time with God. God open up doors and everything.
And now a short word from our sponsor.
MyPillow is excited to announce that they're having the first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 30% on their brand new Mike Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one Mike has worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's and they're made in the USA. The initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. To take advantage of the first ever mega sale, go to mypillow.com and use the Refuge code. Get a great discount on all their products and support the work at Refuge Ministries Canada. Or, if you prefer speaking directly to someone on the phone, call 800-750-2869 and mention the Refuge code. Right now, every order in the USA ships absolutely free. Now let's get back to this episode.
Within a month of bartending, I met a guy. He came into the bar, Danny. We liked each other. We started dating. I was like, oh my God, thank you. This guy's for me. And I was just really excited. And so we fell in love, but I come to find out he's an alcoholic. So I'm like, oh my, why is he have to be in? And he was drinking, but I'm like, oh no, he could stop. So anyhow, make a real long story short, ultimately he died from this disease. I found him dead a month before our wedding day. And here, I have to say, Danny was a great guy. He respected me because as being a Catholic, as coming as a sister, I still had my morals, wait until we get married, all that. And he's like, okay, and what alcoholic says okay to that? And he did. But ultimately, he went back to drinking. He was in a car accident with his mom. He was sober, but he was driving and they got into a tragic car accident. His mom died. He burned up. And then with all that pain, he drank again and then he died. And so I'm just like, God, why? Why all this? Why Danny? Why is his death like this? He loved me for me. We were saving ourselves. And at that moment, Johnny, I didn't have any faith. I lost it. I had no faith, no hope, no love. I was angry with God. I was just so angry with God. And once again, I had to do searching. But at this point, I was in complicated grief. I was simply existed. I did not want to live. I couldn't understand, why? I don't want to say that was my problem, but that was my issue throughout my life. Why God? Why?
I've heard a lot of stories over the years in the podcast. And sometimes God allows us to go to the deepest, darkest places to allow us to see our real need for Him. And He offsets the deepest, darkest places with the absolute glory and magnificence of His love that overcomes all of that. So how did he do that for you? How did he break through that darkness, that overwhelming despair, and just show himself to you that he was so much greater and with open arms just welcoming you back to him?
Well, I did a lot of searching and I ended up going to the rooms of AA just because I just thought maybe I was just looking for answers. And going into these rooms of AA, I come to find out, Johnny, that the underlying thing is that I'm an alcoholic. So when I realized, wow, I'm an alcoholic, all these years that the disease was cunning, baffling cities was always there. I could see how alcohol became my best friend, but yet I ran from it. I ran from my life. So 10 years ago, when I realized I was an alcoholic, I just celebrated 10 years of sobriety.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That was the beginning of a new spiritual awakening. And I did not realize how powerful it was for me. Because when I had said I was an alcoholic, which came out of the blues, and realizing it, all the pain and everything I held, all the hatred and the hurts just opened up. And I heard a voice, which I know it was God's voice, said, do you want to go to the alcohol to drink it away? Which was normally what I would do. Or if I wasn't drinking, I would go to my pity couch, to be the victim. And because there was a point before this, it was a point that I thought I was meant to suffer. That was my life, suffering. So when I realized I was an alcoholic and started this 12-step program, and I had a real spiritual awakening where God came back in my life. I received a new life with God, a new beginning, and just totally knew that I know who I am. Granted, I'm an alcoholic in recovery, but I'm a child of God. And that's the most beautiful miracle that I've experienced because, Johnny, I've been looking for that child my whole life within. I was looking for that child. I was looking to embrace it, but instead I was running from it or trying to have this identity of myself or this child would fill. But when I realized, yes, I'm an alcoholic, in that I came to know that, that's why of things. I could have used the program years ago, but it wasn't the case. But I'm a person who I am today because of everything that has happened. And even in the joys that I'm experiencing today as a sober woman of faith. And so God, I have a totally new relationship with God. And it's just a real joy to be with him today.
Yeah, I think sometimes he lets us go through a lot of those things as he allows us to go into those deep, dark places because he wants to show us the key that opens the door to him. And when we take that key and we accept that key to open that door, Jesus says, I stand at the door and knock. And if any man opens it, I'll come in. And when we take that key and we open that door, Jesus will come into our hearts and, as you said, give us a new life, right? So it always amazes me how faith makes such a big change in someone's life from wherever they've come from to where they are now.
And so the best thing about it, Johnny, is that I still on this journey of faith. It still grows. It doesn't stand still.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
And it's amazing because yes, I have tools of what I've learned of the program, like that I have God in my life that I can handle life on life's terms, no matter what comes my way, with God and for his glory. To my best ability. I mean, yes, I'm human. I fall short, but that's the greatest gift is know that I have a God that loves me for who I am. And I don't need to be someone I'm not anymore. I mean, I continue to grow.
Yeah. He just asks us to come with him with an open and contrite heart, and he changes us every day. And like you said, it's such an amazing journey. It's such an eye-opening thing. He gives us this little nuggets of faith that we can stand on and grow on, and it just continues to build and build and build. And it's so exciting. It really is. Now, you've also taken on a role where you are comforting people that are in their last days on this earth. So tell me a little bit about how you entered into that role. Was it just strictly the compassion based on your own loss in your life, or did you feel like God kind of drew you into that?
As I said, when I was with my mom, I had no faith, no hope, no love, no God. To me, that was hell. Now I taste heaven. I'm like, yes, this is where I want to go, to be with those, to go to their heaven, to go to their peace, to go to their God. And so, yes, I'm an end-of-life doula, certified, which means is that it's a non-medical, it's like an extra means for hospice. It's just somebody that I go in and spend time with them, however they want, whatever they need. And I'm there to, whether it's to sit with them, hold their hand, pray with them, because I don't mind. I love being with the dying. I love packing their bags, I say. I love showing them the way or just praying. And I've been in so many deathbeds, people who have passed away with faith, without faith. And I always feel heaven coming and opening up the doors. And yeah, it's a passion. It's because from experience not having it to having it today.
Yeah, there's so much joy in being able to express the life of Christ to others around us. And some accept it, some don't. But that doesn't change the fact that we're still called to share that life to everyone we cross paths with.
And who am I to say on their last breath, God's there. I know God's there. So I always believe that God in his merciful love. And it's beautiful to see how their faces, how they do transform in ways of not knowing Jesus and then loving Jesus. And whenever at their end, I will always whisper into their ear and says, give a big hug to Jesus for me. And then my mom and then my dad. And then Danny, and then everyone else that comes up to you that knows me, you feel free to hug them, And I'm also there for the families because it is a challenging time for the families. I mean, it is. It's a sad time. It's a real sad time. I've been there and being present to the families, even with their faith, even they may have their faith. It's still a sad time. So I just try to be present to them, even afterwards of grieving. Grieving was my best friend, so I'm familiar with grieving. And the best thing is not to say anything. So I've learned. I've learned, and everyone is different. And like we started off with this podcast, I pray. I pray before I go. I say, Lord, what do you want? Use me. What do you want me to say? My hands, my mouth, put away my shoes, put on the doula shoes of being your instrument.
So I know that you've written a book called Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. Is that a story about your journey of faith?
Yeah, that is. It's everything that I've shared, but it goes in more details of growing up to being a sister, being Danny's. Yes, it is. It's a journey. It's about faith, hope, sobriety, self-discovery, and healing.
Look.
It is. And it's like what God said, what Jesus said to his disciples, shake the dust off your feet and walk. And I realize in hindsight, it's a perfect title because that's how my journey was. I had to continue to keep walking, shaking the dust, whether I was in pain, suffering, whatever it may be. I didn't like it. I had to just keep moving forward because, to be honest, Johnny, it is God's power and his miracle for me to be sitting here today. And what I've learned also is not to take my life for granted, nor my sobriety for granted at all.
Amen. So where can people find your book and where can they find out more about what you do?
Yes, my website is GinaEcon.com, and you can find my book on there or on Amazon, Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. And then you'll read more about my blogs on my website and any more information. There's also a contact in case somebody would like to reach out, ask for prayers. I'm a very prayerful person. I love to pray, believe in the power of prayer and the power of God in all of us.
Amen. Okay, one final question for you. What's the one thing you would tell people about God?
Oh, that God is good, all loving. There's so many words you can share about God, but God is all forgiving. He's just loving. He's a father. He's everything. God is everything, I guess.
Amen to that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and God bless you and all you do for him.
Thank you, Johnny, and to all your listeners.
Sometimes this world is so disheartening and troubles abound, and tomorrow, why, just another mountain. Today I can't even climb. And you feel like crying all your blues away. Sometimes you gotta lose it all before you find a way. Now sometime hard luck and sorrow, the best teacher you ever gonna find. Why, you learn more in the valleys, my friend, than on any mountain top. And your heartaches, they stand like sentinels all around the price you pay. Sometimes you gotta lose it all before you find your way. Sometimes you have to hit the wall before you see the light of day. But I know you're gonna find there's a way. Oh, yes, you will. Find there's a way. Somebody say, man, I know where there's a will, there's a way. Yes, I know you're gonna find there's a way.
I hope that you have enjoyed the last half hour. Thank you again to Refuge Ministries Canada for hosting the show. So until next Friday, may God richly bless you with peace, love, and happiness.
We at Refuge Ministries are so blessed by the success of Refuge Freedom Stories and podcasts. In addition, we focus on youth prison ministry, release kits, and many other diverse outreaches to the needs of our community. As a nonprofit, there are many costs involved, however, and we are asking for your support. Financial gifts can be made via our website at www.refugeministriescanada.com or by calling 519-701-0108. Your giving makes this work possible, and we thank you in advance for your support. That's 519-701-0108. God bless you.